Good afternoon, persons of quality, and welcome to this introductory presentation to the junior summer reading. So, the goal here is to make sure you get an introduction on the first day to both summer reading novels. So, I have two PowerPoints that I'm going to intersperse in here. And I want to spend a little bit of time making sure that we have an understanding of the syllabus and sort of what's going to happen in this new 2022 fall U of D Jesuit semester. So ultimately, I am Mr. Justin Manuel. This is year 24 at U of D. So I think that's, first of all, sort of important. The summer reading specifically is designed as a way to jumpstart us into the course itself. So let's do this. Get yourselves into the Mudge page for my class. I don't have it password protected, so make sure you can access my Mudge page from your schedule. When you do, you're going to see all the information that I've already put in there for you. So let's first go to the course syllabus. What I want you to do is I want you to download that course syllabus. I want you to read it over. If you notice, the last page of the syllabus asks for both your signature and your parent's signature, saying you've read it over so you're really clear on the course guidelines and what it is that you're going to need to do over the next 19 weeks or so. The average semester in high school is 19 weeks, so that should be relatively simple. So work on that as a significant first easy piece of what you do. Maybe even do that while you're sitting in class completing this video and working through your process. The video is designed so that you can stop, you can back up if you need to, you can do whatever it is that you're going to need to do to make this successful. So you need to read the syllabus. It's 3:15 here on Wednesday afternoon before the first day of school, and I have yet to post that syllabus to Mudge. You don't care at this moment, but I'm just telling you that as sort of that first idea and what we want to be able to pay attention to. After you've read over the syllabus, take a look. I have two Aussie doodles downstairs barking. After you've looked at the syllabus, take a look at the writing guidelines. There should be a topic there that has all the major things in it that you're going to need listed. Now, ultimately, the writing guidelines, the rubric, we're going to cover those pieces. But as you write, you got to make sure you use that as a checklist so that you're moving forward. So those are the first two major pieces of Mudge that I want you to look at before you come into class on Friday. Now, I'm going to be there on Friday. I'm not in today because I need to take our son to college. And so we're going to take him, we're going to drop him off, move him in, then drive back home. It's only about 2.5 hours each way, so that's not going to be too difficult. So I think that's going to be significant. Then turn to your left, and on the wall, I believe it's to the left of the window, you have listed the 5 levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Write those in your notes. I would like to use that as a part of our discussion on Friday. And who knows, maybe there'll be a quick little assessment that says, did you do what I asked you to do in this first video presentation? Then the third sort of nuts and bolts piece of this is that the junior summer reading test for my class and for at least one of our other junior teachers will be Monday. So if you haven't finished both novels, if you haven't finished the things that you need to do, this would be an excellent opportunity for you to get that achieved. So, review the syllabus. And if you'll notice in the last page of the syllabus, there is a signature page. I need you and your parent to sign it and return it to me on Friday. If you can't return it to me on Friday, Monday at the very latest. I'm attaching points to you doing this. So if you don't turn it in on time, you get none of those particular points. Review the writing guidelines. And what I posted there for you is sort of expectations for the beginning of this first semester. Make sure you complete your summer reading. Now, over my right-hand shoulder, there is a picture. If you can identify that picture, I will provide you 2 bonus points. You just have to wait for me to ask you that particular question. It is in Detroit, so that might narrow it down for you just a little bit. So, this is the intro piece. I want to move into our summer reading now to make sure we are moving forward. So, again, good afternoon, persons of quality. Here is the second portion of this presentation, specifically on To Serve with Love. Now, in the time since I made the first video and started this video, I learned that my car has died. The timing chain is broken and it's thousands of dollars to fix it, so I'm a little melancholy, but that's okay. So just taking a look. So if we review To Serve with Love, and we talk about Ricky Brathwaite and his adventures and all of this, my basic sort of idea here with this lesson is to talk about major characters, how that connects to the different methods of teaching, and what that says sort of about the novel, and a little bit about the philosophical view of the characters. So, threefold approach: the major characters, the methods of teaching, and what that reflects about social justice and the development of the human being, and then the sort of philosophical development of the characters. This novel, I think, is much more specific than I found in Kaffir Boy about this philosophical approach. And I think that, of course, is going to be of great value as we look at this. So I, of course, am going through my material here. So again, the motif is something that we've seen before. You have a class of unruly kids, out of control. They ignore rules. They challenge authority. And these are very much what we call Bildungsroman novels. Bildungs, Bildungsroman. Bildungs, Bildungsroman. A Bildungsroman is a coming-of-age story where characters go from immaturity, unawareness, it's not quite a word, but you get what I'm saying, from a state of ignorance to a state of knowledge and experience. One of the recurrent themes of this year is going to be logic versus emotion, and then innocence versus experience. So as we look at how these things go, definitely something you want to be aware of in the novel and how those characters develop. So we get varying staff members, and each one represents something different about that philosophical approach. And then the students do the exact same thing, and then because of that, they offer challenge and they push teachers out. Now, this is, of course, the common motif. High school students, I don't like that teacher, so we're going to make it absolutely miserable. Teachers should know this and be aware of their environment as they come into this, so there's nothing too totally shocking in all of this. So, take a look at your teachers. You've got Thackeray. He's respected because of his calm manner. You yell too much, you get too worked up, and students don't tend to respect that, at least in the novel. But that incident with the sanitary napkin, the maxi pad, and then that put him right off the deep end. So he has a breaking point, and the students go out of their way to exploit that. So it's going to reflect on both the students and the teacher in that regard. So Ricky comes in and has a specific approach, and that he's trying to set up a new approach to teaching and how students treat each other. And so that idea of respect, and that's where the title of the novel comes from. So if everybody refers to each other as sir or ma'am, that generates a level of respect, and that heightens the awareness that Ricky is forced to have as he goes through the novel. The fact that he can connect with the students when he reveals his humble background, that he's on the same level almost, and we call that emoting, that he's able to emote with students about how he feels and where he comes from. That's a big moment. Now, like I did in the Catcher in the Rye piece, I'm giving you markers that you want to go through and attend to. So do some analysis. Find in the book the turning point where he starts talking about himself and he opens up. Find where the students become less belligerent and more open to his process. Like, for example, that he allows students to set the topics. He establishes the mutual level of respect. I think the boxing anecdote in there has a huge contribution as well. And all of that leads to him winning the class over and ultimately organizing a class outing. Seems to make sense. Conflict caused by the gym teacher. Goes out of his way to embarrass Fats. And I think, again, you're looking at the individual relationships between teachers and students and what that reveals about sort of awareness and the human condition and kindness. I'd even go so far as saying something like empathy. So Potter wrestles with the gym teacher. Of course, chaos, you can't do that. Thackeray's called in to diffuse the situation and insists that Potter must apologize. So a real nice, simple incident. But when Thackeray puts Potter on the spot, Potter and the other students lose respect. It's an us versus them mentality, and I think that's a really interesting idea. And you got to look at how Brathwaite is initially unable to address those in the beginning of the novel, but how he grows as a character and what his Bildungsroman roman is. So not only do the students have that coming of age, but Brathwaite has to do it as well. And I certainly think that the coming of age comes from his relationship, and that's very specific. Use as an example of this personal growth the death of Seals' mother and what happens as a result, and what Pamela Dare does in the novel in response to the death of Seals' mother. It's a small gesture, but I think seemingly incredibly important in the novel. So if it were me, these would definitely be things I would hold on to. You can spend some time looking at Pamela's attitude and her absenteeism. She stays away. What does that say? What does that prompt Braithwaite to do in the novel? And again, I think these are going to give us some important ideas. Thackeray encourages Pamela to talk to her mother, and as we know, sorry, that's my ring. As we know, students are not likely to talk to their parents because their parents don't see things in the same vein. So Pamela refuses, and because Thackeray pushes it, he loses the respect of the kids. So I think this is an important idea. The students are all looking for belonging and a sense of purpose. And what we see in Thackeray's responses in the novel is that undermines the student's ability to emote and relate. So I see that as critical to the whole development of the novel. Of course, he considers resigning. I'm going to quit and I don't know what else to do. And of course, look at the boxing match with Denham. your Braithwaite character goes out of his way to be gentle with Denham in the match. He even lets him hit him. So I think that's significant. So look at the Braithwaite character. I've been using the word Thackeray. That's different. I apologize. It's the Ricky Braithwaite character. So Denham and the boxing match. Again, another turning point in this process where Denham meets Ricky on Denham's terms, but creates a problem. Oh, I'm sorry, I misspoke. Thackeray is not the same as Ricky. So Denham is goading Thackeray to hit him so he could force Thackeray to resign. Offers Denham a position as the gym instructor. How do you win over your enemies? You make them part of the process. How do you take the alienated and bring them back into the fold as you ask them to participate in the process? And so Ricky Braithwaite is very much driven by those ideas. So I think that's important. Winning Denham's trust is a transitional piece in the story. And I'm right at the 10-minute, 30-second mark right now. And I'm waiting just a second to go down and have dinner. So I'm trying to really work these details out for you. You go to the class dance. What does that reveal about the development of the novel? What does it reveal about Ricky Braithwaite's character and his sort of epiphany that he has? Now, I'm leaving out of this lecture at the 11-minute and 5-second mark anything about Braithwaite and his relationship, his girlfriend, and what eventually blooms. I'm not talking about the interracial nature of that relationship quite yet. I'm going to leave that for after the first day of class. But I certainly think that these are all very important things to attend to and address as you go through the particular story. So you look at your main character. He comes from British Guiana. He holds a degree in communication engineering. He's well educated, well involved in the process. But if you remember in the first few chapters, he is denied a job because he's too black, too intimidating. So I think that again becomes important as it goes. Take a look at the principal and his roles in the process. Look at Gillian Blanchard and the role that she plays. Again, what I think is important. Denham's role. He's a student, but he challenges the teacher. Take a look at Pamela Dare and how she is hugely developed as a character. But because she has a crush on the teacher, that's going to create yet another level of distress and a level of problem. So again, I want to see in your notes, just like I've been giving you questions to think about, I want to see a short synopsis of why each of these characters is important. I don't need the SparkNotes version, but I want you to look at why these characters are significant to the development of the plot lines of the story. And again, I think that's very important. So that's the starting point. Now I'm going to stop this particular piece because I need to go take care of some family stuff. But when I come back, I want to talk about the methodology of teaching and what Braithwaite is doing with that as he talks about Thackeray. Now, I've been mixing up those names. Braithwaite is your author, but Thackeray is the character. But it's the same person. So you want to make sure you're attending to that as you go. So this is 13 minutes and 27 seconds. When I come back, I'm going to cover the methods of teaching, and then I'm going to bring this to sort of a conclusion. So your whole presentation ends up around the 30 to 35 minute mark. So you should be well prepared for Friday and then Monday's summer reading test. So I'll be right back. So good morning again. As I was sitting down to produce this video for you for Thursday, I realized that there were some segments in here that I wanted to make sure I covered before I went too far. So before I get to actually covering the summer reading, and just brief in preparation for Monday's summer reading test. If you go to the Mudge page, which you now have access to, and you pull up the syllabus, I want to make sure that you read through those documents. So probably 8-9 years ago, we had to come up with the extraordinarily large and detailed syllabus that you're going to see in front of you when you download it. What I want you to specifically look at is the course guidelines and policies. So first of all, no late homework. So has to be in on time. Usually the deadlines are going to be midnight if it's submitted digitally. If not, you have to hand it to me in class. I'm going to go to a lot of paper this year, but I love the digital environment. I also want you to take some time to review the writing guidelines. These are the guidelines that are built upon what you did in your freshman year. And the grading rubric, which I'll introduce to you probably in the second week, is based completely on those writing guidelines and how that works. And as you do some writing on your summer reading, you're going to have the opportunity to sit and look at those particulars. So I was going to do some screenshots initially of this and record over it, but given the circumstances, I want you to review the syllabus. I want you to review the writing guidelines and the other documents that you're going to see posted in topics. Take some time to review what's there. I do a lot of video teaching, so there's going to be a lot of that material in there as well. You don't have to go through and look at anything after the summer reading topic right now. But again, might be something worth your while. So make sure you dedicate a little bit of time to that while you're sitting in my class right now. Again, Friday, there's probably going to be a little bit of an assessment to see if you did the work. Okay, I'm going to take a second shot at this. My dogs came in and caused a little bit of a ruckus, but this next little segment is about methodology. It's about teaching and the changes that occur as a result. And to prove dogs came here, and of course I'm doing that on purpose. Hopefully you're subtly paying attention. So our main character, the Braithwaite character, if you will, very much in the beginning wanted to be basically a civil engineer, had to end his way up in education to find a job, faced institutional racism, faced apartheid, faced all these kinds of things. Technically not apartheid, but it's the same basic principle to link it to Kaffir boy. So what do we see about Braithwaite's autobiographical character? Very traditional, very linear, very sort of resistant to thinking outside of the box and new teaching method. So this set him sort of very much at odds with his students because non-traditional learners, very much language that we've talked about within the last 10 years in the United States. Non-traditional learners. This whole process of video teaching works for non-traditional learners. So very much stick to the curriculum. I'm not going to deviate. I'm not going to change anything. If you hear my dog panting, she's all hot because she was just running around outside, so you'll be fine. So very much the sticking with the curriculum. This is before his interactions with Pamela Dare and Denham and the major people in the story. Afterwards, about face, 180-degree turn. Talks with students. Hang it. Go, Bailey. There you go. Out. Go. Okay. Very much what we would call non-traditional. Talks with the students. Not necessarily befriending. Well, befriending will work, but, not bringing himself down necessarily to their level, but emoting. Being able to have empathy with what they're going through. The curriculum was much more fluid in finding out where students were and, meeting them where they are, the very Jesuit phrase. Probably a good reason why this book is in our summer reading curriculum. Real life learning, not just in the books. That's why the field trip is so significant. That's why stepping out of the box is so significant. And that very non-traditional sort of idea of stepping outside of the box and stressing mutual respect. the best way to work on interpersonal relationships, and that's the key word. The best way to work on interpersonal relationships is that idea of mutual respect. So Braithwaite is very particular in what he does with the philosophical approaches of the characters. So we've talked sort of about character, we've talked about the presentation of what they do in the novel. So let's talk about Hackman. Let's talk about idealism. Let's talk about how his approach to the students in the class conflicts with the reality of what's going on. Illusion versus reality. Innocence versus experience. Major themes that we're going to talk about. What you're going to hear me refer to as logic versus emotion. Hackman bails. He flees. Makes sense. Can't blame him for fleeing because the world as he knows it, or what he signed up for, exploded. Now it's something completely different. So Hackman becomes that example of what's on the outside. So look at what occurs with Hackman as a character. Pay attention to what happens to Mr. Bell. He too has a certain idealism. He says things like teaching provides the bread and butter. He says things like, well, that's all the staff except for Mr. Bell, our PE instructor. So what is it about Mr. Bell that sets him apart? So you have Hackman and you have Bell. Are they truly idealists, or is it something different? What do you think of the teacher's strict requirements? What do you think about, are they unreasonable? Are they proper? What are these teachers trying to meld these students into? I think that's significant. What are Mr. Bell and sorry, what are Mr. Bell and Mr. Hackman trying to do as characters? That's worthy of some analysis. Hackman's popular probably because he's too easy. Bell challenges, and so because he's demanding, he has a very specific sort of approach. And both of those seem to lead to a sense of failure. Take a look at the students. You got Denham. Denham very specifically challenges the system. Pamela Dare seems to be on the outside and doesn't fit in well. But both Denham and Pamela Dare are examples of realists. So you've got idealism versus realism here as ways of looking at the world. So our realists would be Denham and Pamela Dare because they live the life. And certainly I think that's going to matter. I think Mr. Weston in the story is a perfect example of a realist. Again, as you go through and you look at the text and you do your analysis, just like I gave you questions to think about and answer earlier, this gives you the same type of opportunity. Can you provide me with evidence about why Weston, Denham, and Pamela Dare are all examples of realist characters? Can you answer these questions? What do you think is the reason for the firm, realistic perspective held by both the teachers and those students? What links them? How does the realistic stance of these characters affect the teachers and the students in perceiving themselves and other people? How does their realistic stance cause them to develop as characters? Again, certainly worth our time for analysis. And I think that's really going to help us move through the details of the story. The last little segment here before I bring this one to an end, I think is incredibly important. That's the idea of pragmatism. Pragmatic, Pragmatism. I spelled pragmatism. Pragmatic is the adjective. So if you're pragmatic, it means you are realistic. It means you know exactly what it is that you have to do to be able to survive. Basic survival skills. If you're from the streets, you know what you have to do, and that's going to conflict with sort of the social standards in many circumstances. Look at how your students in this novel conflict with the social standards. Look at how Braithwaite, his character, from the beginning of the novel, has to come to sort of in conflict and come to grips with those challenges in character and what he has to do as a result. He actually seems to go from a realist, a bitter, disenfranchised human being to one who's much more idealistic. I find that to be very significant in the novel. So pragmatism, basic survival skills. What are the appropriate ways to interact? What should be the appropriate interaction between men and women? What is the difference between reading about the world in a book and reading about the world in